Chair, as well as to my colleagues, Senator Leyva and Mr. Canella. To all those in the audience, I want to welcome all of you. We are convening the Rules Committee hearing. It is Wednesday, August 19th. I apologize for the delay, but we will begin. Why don't we establish a quorum? Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Senators Canella. Here. Canella here. Leyva. Here. Leyva here. Mitchell. Fuller. Here. Fuller here. DeLeon.
Here.
DeLeon here.
Fantastic. We have established a quorum. We have a pretty busy agenda today. We have quite a few government appointees. We have a handful that are required to appear today, plus we have others that are not, which are the vast majority of the appointments before us. We have a couple of other business at hand, and colleagues, so that you know, we will go into an executive session shortly thereafter, so hopefully we can be expeditious with this hearing. We have before us two appointments that the governor has made that are required to appear. Mr. Michael Picker, and hopefully I get this correct, Leanne Randolph, both members of the Public Utilities Commission, the PUC. Please welcome, come on. Good afternoon, Ms. Randolph. Good afternoon, Mr. Picker. So why don't we start and we'll cut to the chase. Your two appointments by the governor for the PUC, Public Utilities Commission. I think both of you have read through your files. Mr. Picker, we know each other, not deeply, but we know of each other. I know that both of you, from what I've read, are both individuals of education and of substance. I think you're both experienced in state government and have held very high positions. I think just recently the
General Counsel, Deputy Secretary at the Natural Resources Agency.
Natural Resources Agency. I think working with Secretary Mr. Laird.
Yes.
That's John Laird, who was a former colleague of mine in the Senate. So I believe both of you are good people and of good values. And I don't think it's any surprise to anyone, to yourselves especially, to the public, obviously to the media, and just as importantly to ratepayers as well as to legislators in this building, both on the Senate side as well as the Assembly side, that there is some very severe institutional challenges today at the PUC. And I don't think a day goes by without a report of some sort, of some issue, some scandal happening at the PUC. The Commission's own judge, and I want to go through a couple of them, and then we'll go into a little more engagement. The Commission's own judge stated that the laws and regulations were violated in the San Onofre nuclear power plant settlement. So we'll address that. Obviously, the PUC has contracted outside white shoe law firm to spend upwards up to $800 an hour on the criminal defense that has led to an unprecedented action on both the Assembly as well as the Senate side by cutting the PUC's budget by $5 million specifically. Records also show that the Commission declined to side with the Obama administration on issues dealing with net neutrality as well as providing internet services to the working poor in the state of California. Also, the issue of Carlsbad fossil fuel energy plant near San Diego appears to be somewhat flawed in terms of the petitions for the rehearing, which I think is pending right now with the PUC. You can give us an update on that. And of course, I'm no expert on the inner workings of the PUC, but this is a wonderful opportunity for both of you to address some very difficult questions, some hard questions, but I think it's good to be transparent at these Rules Committee hearings. We all know, I think we agree collectively, that there are some very severe problems in San Francisco with the Public Utilities Commission. That being said, I know a lot of this was inherited, and some of the issues may have been a little exasperated too on the back end. These are very important issues. A couple things that I want to add is we have some policy issues here through the legislature. Obviously, Senators Ben Hueso, Senators Jerry Heal, as well as Senator Mark Leno. These three senators have policy measures that deal with reforms at the PUC want to get your take on those respective policy measures. Speaking with Senators Hueso, Hill, as well as Leno, there is a feeling that there is some foot dragging, perhaps a little hide the ball. I don't want to say those are my words, but if I could extrapolate, if you will, from the conversations that we have had, that I have had with these three senators, this is the conclusion that I come to. So we'll get into ex parte communications and that a little more. So feel free to give your general statement. I don't want you to feel compelled to answer the whole litany of questions, and there weren't even questions, but concerns that I have articulated. Just give us your general statement, and then from there, what we'll do is we'll dive in a little deeper. With that too, and I should have stated this a little earlier, but if there's any significant others, loved ones, friends, families that you'd like to introduce and that they'd like to be recognized, please do so. This is your opportunity. You're introducing Mr. Picker. Is there significant
Yes,
others?
I have.
This is the first, yeah.
We've grown
have
very
no-
close very quickly.
I have no loved ones here because my ninth grader has orientation for
Gotcha,
high school
gotcha,
today,
okay.
and there's no way he was going to miss that.
Absolutely. I was going to say, Mr. Picker, you have a very strong chairmanship, at the PSC.
Maybe not so much, but I do want to introduce my wife, Nini Redway,
Please.
who
Yes.
actually worked here in the building on the
Okay.
other side. I hope that won't be held against me. And I'm very proud that she joined me here today.
And where would she be at? Oh, yes. Hi. Hi, hi.
She actually
I didn't know you guys were married
Yeah.
this time. Yeah. I had no idea. Okay.
She bought me this tie, but then she told me it was not appropriate to wear here today, so I'm still trying to figure that out. I'm a little slow, so my apologies. I'll just start off by saying that this job continues to be the most frustrating and the most difficult of my career. The central challenge is to unwind the complexity of the organization, to make it more accessible and easy for people to see and to work with. I think that that's a long-term task. I think we have a ways to go. I think that there are some differences between me and the past two presidents, certainly. I am trying and working hard to share my powers as a president. I think that my task is actually to serve the rest of the commission, to make them an effective body working together for the organization. And so a good example of how we are doing that is that we are the first commission as a body for many years to actually take on the task of being a governing body, of actually starting to establish written policies that can help to guide both the commissioners, but also to set direction for the organization, to develop delegations to staff, to develop some measures of accountability and a process for actually monitoring that in an effective way. And then as commissioners to step back and let the staff actually carry out their tasks. It's complicated because on top of that, we also, as well as a governing body, will continue to serve as commissioners who preside over each of us will have a portfolio of proceedings that lay out the concrete requirements of the utilities and the entities that we regulate. And so to the extent that I can, I've been seeking the preferences of the commissions as to which proceedings they'll sit on, and just trying to be mindful of workload, make sure that people don't end up taking on more than they're likely to be able to achieve in a reasonable period of time, and looking a little bit further down the road to make sure that there are commissioners who are ready to take on things that we know are going to appear on the horizon. I think that I'll say, and I'll let Commissioner Randolph speak to this, but I think we're making some progress. We now meet instead of just one day every 2 weeks, 2 days every 2 weeks. We have a full day where we look to the business of the PUC as an organization, and then we look to on the second day to the business of the Public Utilities Commission as a regulator, and to the functions of the utilities and the business entities that we set standards for. And I think that over time, this will help us to be very clear on where we're going. It'll help other people to understand where they're going. And they'll also be able to use the same tools and the same public forums that we're creating to actually measure our progress and our effectiveness and our accountability. I think it also is a tool that the staff can use to hold the commissioners accountable to the functions that we set them to. And if in fact it's not working, we have a place where they can actually come and articulate how our direction or our metrics are actually failing to satisfy the needs of the organization and what they see and hear from both the publics that we are accountable to, but then to the utilities that we have to regulate. I'll just point to a few of the high points that we've seen along the way. We continue to make progress in rebuilding a safety program that's eroded over the last 20 years because of the failure of past commissions to really function as a governing body. We're starting to see a new standing within the commission and outside for staff. It's not just a dumping ground anymore. People have pride to be working there. I'll point to our safety policy and safety plan, which was the first policy that was adopted as a guiding policy by the commission. The plan, it actually has 2015 work plan, and that people are actually achieving it. We've been monitoring it on a quarterly basis. We're starting to see that in a tougher enforcement posture. I'll point to the San Bruno decision where we fined PG&E the largest fine of any utility in the United States ever. Roughly $1.9 billion, and that set of actions, another portion totaling, the total fines were 2.24. We're concerned that that still is not dealing with some of the safety issues that we see. But there's a point where just fining the utility could simply become a cost of doing business. It gets passed along to ratepayers. So we're starting to look at how do we actually measure whether the board is performing as we expect them to keep track of these utilities and the infrastructure that they manage on behalf of the public of the state of California. We released that proceeding just day before yesterday. It's novel. We have never done it before. We'll learn a lot. I'm sure the utilities will learn a lot. I spent 2 full days in the state of New York looking at how they conduct a similar kind of corporate governance and management audit. It was very helpful to me in terms of framing this. Just today, we actually released a change in our rules for public comment that would require companies to attest, company managers to attest to the safety of the programs that they manage. I think that's another tool that we'll use. We can then apply that to our rate making. We have a risk assessment and rate making proceeding. We've pioneered new citation programs. So I think we're making progress. And I think that people will start to see it and feel it and taste it. And I'm hoping that these kinds of efforts, again, we're meeting together as commissioners. We're trying to build programs that are easier for people to understand. So we actually are pioneering and piloting a new kind of a proceeding. We call it the solicitation for input. And what we do is send out some proposed actions and seek the input of all the stakeholders who come before the PUC to find out whether they think it's controversial and whether we need to have a full proceeding or we can move in a more administrative process. So the first one we did wiped out 34 old rules that were pretty much outmoded. Good example of what we obliterated in that first SFI was the requirement that we regulate the toilet paper and the cabooses of trains. I think I talked about this last year. We're now getting at 30 some odd old reports that nobody has shown any interest with, or in industries that don't exist anymore. And we're looking at establishing in a third SFI a class of safety interveners to be able to bring new expertise into all of our proceedings that generally hasn't participated. So I'll leave it at that because I'm sure we'll come back to some of these things. But I think we're making progress. I hope to be a different kind of a president. I hope that you'll see a different kind of a commission.
Okay, thank you much, Mr. Picker. Commissioner Randolph.
Thank you. I obviously come as from the perspective of the new kid on the block. And we have, as you mentioned, an incredible list of challenges. I will be frank that I found some of the email communication and interaction between the industry and past staff and commissioners appalling and concerning. And we, as a commission, I think, have the responsibility to restore public trust in our activities and in our decision-making. And to that end, I think President Picker has set a new tone as president. He has set forth a collaboration that I have been honored and excited to take part in. The formation of the commissioner committees to allow us to have extensive discussion of administrative issues that are important to the functioning of the organization.
These are the main subcommittees you're referring to?
Correct, yes.
Which you are a chair of.
I am
one
the
of
chair of the
subcommittees.
Policy and Governance Committee.
Okay.
We have three: Policy and Governance, Modernization, and Finance and Administration. And that has been an important process to allow us to think about these issues, to tick through them one at a time, and make real progress in making some fundamental organizational changes. We have, on the issue of the emails and the ex parte contacts, we have been working on those step by step. We commissioned a report from Michael Strumwasser at the Strumwasser and Rucher law firm, which is an incredibly extensive analysis and raised some very concerning issues. The governor appointed Ed O'Neill to look at ways to modernize the PUC and to look at ex parte issues and to look at communication amongst the commissioners. We have taken a careful look at those reports. The Policy and Governance Committee the Policy and Governance Committee met on August 12th, and we took public testimony on those issues and have started the process of looking at specific changes that we can make that are within our authority as a commission with regard to our ex parte processes. One of our challenges, I think, is better accessibility to the public, better communication to the public about what we're doing. And the Modernization Committee, for instance, had a hearing a few weeks ago taking a look at how can we incorporate public testimony in our proceedings in a better way. The process is set up to allow for parties to participate, but it's hard to make public comment and public testimony part of our record, which is a barrier to groups that have not traditionally participated in CPUC proceedings or that may be interested in one specific issue and don't have experience in other CPUC proceedings and don't have the funds to hire a consultant or an attorney. And so one of the things we're looking at is, are there ways that we can make public participation a stronger part of our proceedings? And internally, as we discussed, we have, as President Picker mentioned, we've made a lot of administrative changes to improve our processes. One example he didn't mention is compliance with ordering paragraphs program. And that is, for the first time, the commission is tracking, each time we issue an order, a decision, we approve a decision, it includes ordering paragraphs at the end that direct the applicant to do a list of things. And we had no system to track. Here's the list. Have they done those things on time, and what the process for that is? And so we instituted that system and set up a tracking method to look at those ordering paragraphs to make sure that we are holding the applicants accountable for the work that they're doing. So that's just a short list of some of the issues that we are trying to tackle. It's going to take time, but we are committed to doing it right.